What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go to the shop for or not. What we're going to be talking about right now is Renew Your Vows number 2. So Renew Your Vows number 1 is really a great book because it's one of the few Marvel books to actually crack into the top 10 of this month's sales figures, or at least last month's sales figures. And number 2 picks up where the original story left off, however, in a fairly different aspect. So what we see is Mary Jane kind of bounding through the city in her full-on Spider Lady kind of outfit, which we don't really have a good superhero name for her yet, but she's got her daughter in tow, so you've got this spider-helmeted little kid as, Mary Jane swinging through the city, and it's just, oh my god, it's just, the art on this is just so fantastic. So, we see her kind of developing those things, and inside of her interior thought bubbles, we get to see inside the mind of Mary Jane. And when it comes to Mary Jane, she's a bit of a multitasker, so her mind's going a mile a minute while she's throwing her girl up in the air, catching her, concentrating on all these different things. She's planning a party, she's doing things about her shop, there's all kinds of different stuff. So there's these great little moment as they kind of duck down into an alleyway. She sends Annie Parker on her way, and it's great to see her be a mom in this kind of situation and her interaction with the kids, and the way Stegman does the art in this one where she's just poking Annie in the belly. Oh my god, it's so good. And as Annie makes her way off to school, we get to see a situation where Mary Jane gets to be the hero. So there's a couple robbers that are on a motorcycle heading down Main Street. She kind of catches up with them, and ultimately they duck into the park, and before they have the opportunity to kind of hurt any individuals, any pedestrians, any bystanders, she comes in and just takes them out in probably one of the better action sequences of the entire book. It's just awesome the way that this looks. And before anybody can really snap a photo of this new Spider Lady kind of ducking out, she's like, sorry, no photos, and just pops onto a passing taxi and makes her way into work. So her shop, she's dealing with the average everyday stuff. Her assistant ordered way too many of these things, and then she's got her rent that's been doubled because she's in New York City, and then, oh my god, what's happening with this thing on the blog? Oh, she's popular, so that's great, and she's heading into her local Starbucksy kind of place, and she's really excited, and she's amped up about this, and she's about to get her coffee, and then all of a sudden she sees what's going on with Peter and the whole sinkhole situation. And that's how she got into the situation in issue number 1. That's how she found out about things. And this is where we realize that this is a book that's not necessarily about Peter Parker being married to Mary Jane. This is a partnership book. This is a partnership between Peter Parker and Mary Jane as parents of a child, as well as possible partners as superheroes. Because this is clearly explained by Mary Jane. It's just she understands that the power suit and all this kind of stuff, and Peter's like a worrywart and all that kind of thing, but ultimately the game has changed, Tiger. The rules don't apply anymore. So she bounds off, hops into the situation. We catch up a little bit more with where the story was in issue number 1. We get a little bit of overlap as we kind of move into those things, and then when we finally get to the point what a lot of people previously had said was a pretty easy ending, pretty contrived, we see where Mary Jane leaps into action because the Mole Man has Annie Parker in his clutches, and Mary Jane, she is a badass mofo. She just leaps into action and just brutally crushes all these moloids. It's the funniest and most amazing thing I've seen because she just comes in and just whoops ass. No questions, no ifs, no ands, no buts, just whooping ass. And that was awesome. It was so good because you get this clear contrast between the Peter Parker character and the Mary Jane character. Peter, and she describes him completely as just, he's Mr. Responsibility. He's the doting father. He's the one that tries to teach all these lessons. He's all about being protective and being responsible and those kind of things. Whereas Mary Jane, she leaps into action. She doesn't have that filter. She doesn't have that kind of control at this point in time. She's just not that kind of person, and it shows clearly in the artwork. It was fantastic. And that's pretty much where we leave the book. There are a couple insinuations about what's happening with Peter Parker's spider powers, especially when Mary Jane is using them at the same time, so when they're in the same space, and how he can actually feel those things being sucked out of him. And this is going to lend itself to a much deeper discussion as we kind of develop this technology and flesh out exactly how those things work, because ultimately, these two should have avoided the final thing that happened to him in this book, but it felt like, Peter's spider sense had been a bit dulled, so to speak. So this is going to carry on for another 2 issues into issue 3 and issue 4, where we're going to kind of see this mole-man conflict kind of flesh out. So as far as I can say, Gerry Conway is doing a stellar job, and he's written probably one of the best Mary Jane story arcs, even though it's a single kind of one-shot issue. He's given that character more flesh and body, she feels more real than I can really remember Mary Jane being in the comics ever before. And the one thing that I really like is that Ryan Stegman is just doing a phenomenal job with his artwork. Like the expressions that are going on to these individual faces, they're just fantastical representations of each individual character. Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows is easily going to become the best-selling Spider-Man book, especially considering the direction that Dan Slott's going with Amazing Spider-Man. I'm a fan of both of these Spider people, and I'm interested to see where Clone Conspiracy goes, but I'm really stoked on where Renew Your Vows is going to take Peter Parker and Mary Jane. There's a whole lot to develop there, and the world is basically Gerry Conway and Ryan Stegman's oyster. They can make it whatever they're really looking for, and that's fantastic. Overall, I can't recommend Renew Your Vows enough. It's definitely a book that you're going to want to catch up on, and it's probably going to be one of the best books coming out of Marvel Now 2.0 that you're going to be able to read. So that's my review of Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 2, but I want to know what you guys thought too, so hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.